Hi guys, and welcome to how to make Pong in Pygame Part 1. In this in this first part of the series, I'm going to be teaching you guys how to kind of like render characters onto the screen, basic character movement, collisions and such using the Pygame module. So at the end of this tutorial, you should be able to learn some basic skills on how to use the Pygame module. So let's get started. So I just created a folder and I named it Pong in Pygame. And then I added in all the assets I will need. So I added in the art and the sound. And then I just created a simple Python script. And I added in all these functions. For now, I just pass. So it does nothing at the moment. We will come back to this later. So first, let's set up a very basic Pygame window. So I'm gonna import Pygame. I'm gonna import sys, and yeah, and we want to first initialize the Pygame module. So I'm gonna say pygame.init. Then we want to set up the window. So we want to say, oh wait, no. First we have to kind of like specify a width. So I'm gonna say width equals 1050 and height equals 650. Then now only we want to kind of like make the screen variable. So screen equals pygame.display.set mode width and height. So basically screen is just going to like kind of like make the pop up the Pygame the window according to the width and height. So it'll be 650 by 1050 by 650. So then we want to say because like in Pygame we can also like change the tiny icon on the left side of the window. So I want to load icon equals pygame.image.load. Pygame has like really useful functions for loading images or sprites or anything into the window. So I'm basically using the Pygame module dot image and then dot load. Then I need to specify the directory. So what I want to load is actually this icon.png, this simple icon with a simple PNG or like kind of like a picture with the letter P on it, just like a really simple icon. Then I want to load it, so but I need to find it from, I need to go into the art directory. So I first specify art, then I want to kind of like I need to do this slash. That means I'm going inside of the art folder. Now I can access icon.png. So icon.png. Then I want to set the icon. So pygame.display.set icon, and we're gonna pass in icon. So now the icon will be this picture, icon.png, icon pong.png. So it's just really simple. And then I want to also have the clock. So just some basic FPS, set the frame rate. So I'm going to say pygame.time.clock. Then I also want to create two colors because we're going to be using this later. So I'm going to say white equals 250, 250 and 250, the RGB values. So and then I also want the color black. So I'm going to say 0, 0 and 0. So now I'm going to go down here and create a simple kind of like simple while loop so that the program will keep on running. Because if I just run this now, nothing will happen at all. You see, it only pops up for like a moment, but it just disappears because the moment we reach the end, def key, define key input, there's nothing left. So it just closes the program and that's all. So what we're gonna do, I'm gonna create one variable, a bool, run equals true. Then down here, I'm gonna put while run. So while run is true. Then we're gonna check for like, so that I can close the Pygame window. So I'm gonna check for event in pygame.event.get. I want to check if the event.type is equal to pygame.quit. So if I press the X button on the window, then what we're going to do is set run equals false, and we're going to deactivate the pygame module, so pygame.quit, and for a clean close off of the program, we're going to say sys.exit. So that basically will close the window. And now I want to set the frame rate, so clock.tick 60. So we're gonna have 60 frames per second. And if I run this now, it works. And you can see there's the basic icon here in the left. And I can close the window. And that's basically it. However, there's a few more things I would like to add to the window. That is a title. So first, I want to specify pygame.display, and there is this unique function called set caption. So I'm going to say Pong in Pygame. So if I run this, as you can see, it changed. So now the title is Pong in Pygame, and we want to also fill the screen with the color black, because okay, even though it's already black, the screen in color, if later on I'll to like render sprites and characters and I'll try to move them, it'll kind of look really weird. I'll show you why later on when I start rendering the characters, but for now I'm gonna put screen dot fill, and I want to pass in the color black. And there's one more thing we have to do, because like we still have to update like kind of like the sprites, because like if I were just to move the sprites later on without adding this certain line, nothing would happen. So I need to add in pygame dot display dot update. So it's just basically kind of like updating all the kind of characters later on. So yeah, that's basically it. So if I save this and run, there we go. Even though there's not much of a change, later on it will be a really big change. So what I want to do now is kind of like create the first player. So I want to, let's create a comment here and say player 1. So I want to load in the player sprite. The player sprite is just a simple kind of like white tile. Nothing kind of great in particular, just a simple white tile. We're just going to be using simple assets for this tutorial. So then I'm going to kind of load in, because I need to load in the sprite first. So I'm going to call player 1 equals, I'm going to call in pygame.image.load, and since white tile.png is inside the art folder, we're going to have to specify art. Then now we're going to go in, now we can call for it, so we can call white.png. And then because if I were to just load this later on, the size would just be this, a 300 by 300 kind of tile. So that would definitely be too big. So I want to like kind of like scale it properly. But luckily Pygame has this really simple module that helps. So I'm just going to specify player 1 again equals pygame.transform.scale. So we have to specify a few things here. What are we going to scale? So we want to scale the player 1. So I'm gonna pass in player 1, and here we have to include the width and the height of what we're gonna scale it to. So I'm gonna scale player 1 to 30 and 130. Of course, now I could just like try to put it on the screen using screen.blit and passing in player 1 and the x and y coordinates, but it's always better, since Pygame has this really unique function where you can kind of like draw a rectangle around the sprite, so you can move it around and detect collisions easily. So to do that, I'm gonna call in player 1, but I'm gonna name it player1.rec, player1_rec, and we're gonna say equals to player1.getRec. So it's really simple. We're just gonna draw a rectangle around player 1, so we can detect collisions and move it easily. And then I want to kind of, because from here get rag, I can it's basically like a x and y coordinates. Now I can like set it anywhere on the screen I want. So I can pass in a few functions, but before I do that, there's something you need to understand. So because if what I'm gonna do is what kind of like put in center, okay, center. But there's like, so because there's one thing you have to understand with Pygame. When I pass in center here, and then I of course can put like x and y. Center, it means like I'm getting the center of the sprite. So like it's literally getting the center of the sprite. Because if I want to just like, if I don't specify this center, typically sorry, if I normally Pygame, it would just like kind of like grab, it will the x and y basically starts from the top left. So it's kind of like a bit annoying, because like if I'm going to have to set player one dot rect, like, or a certain x and y, and it's going to grab this point, the left side. So it's going to be a bit hard and annoying just to set the player where I want it to be. So I specify center, so it's going to get center. Of course, there are other tutorials that explain then this kind of concept, so I won't go through them. So I'm just going to say center equals, I'm going to pass in an x and y coordinates. So I'm going to say 100 by 325. 325 is half of the height of the screen. So I want to set it in the center and somewhere towards the right of the x. But if I run this right now, I'll show you. Nothing will happen because we're not putting this player one onto the screen. So yeah, I could just basically go in and type screen.bleed, so to basically put player one on the screen, but I already have a function for that. So it's called define main. So now I'm going to run in here, I'm going to write here screen.bleed player one and player one dot rect. So we're specifying what to bleed. So basically bleed is kind of like putting whatever on the screen. So I'm going to put player one on the screen at player one rect, so the x and y. So now, but if I'll just run this, nothing would change because I'm not calling main. So we're going to call main down here. So if I call main, and if I run this, it should work. Yeah, there, as you can see, it works perfectly. I've already rendered player one onto the screen and it works. So now we're going to work on this kind of like simple character movement of player one before we do the same thing for player two. So just give me a moment. Okay. So, okay, it's really simple. We first want to kind of like, okay, key input. We're going to be using this function. So first, we have to get the input from the kind of like the user, the player. So to do that, I'm going to specify keys, and Pygame has this really kind of like really good function where you can just call keys equals Pygame dot keys key dot get pressed. So whatever keys I press on the keyboard or whatever input is going to return it and store it in the variable called keys. So now I can check if keys dot pygame keys pygame dot, and then I'm going to specify k, so what letter I want to do. So I'm going to kind of like make it W, because I want to make the player go up, so W. And then I can specify here player one rec dot x minus equals, let's say, 5. You might be asking in this moment, why is it minus equals 5, not plus equals 5? Because the way kind of Python works is like the x starts here 0, and then here is 1, here is I mean as in the x kind of like starts here, and then like it goes here, and like that's the same for the y. The y starts from 0, and here is 650. And yeah, I just realized not x, y, we're gonna minus 5, so it's minus. And I'm gonna check if elif keys pygame dot k. Now we're gonna use s, that if I press the letter s, and I want the player1 dot rec dot y plus equals 5. So now I can just call for this function here, and if I run this, yep, it should work, and it works really well. So I can move up and down, up and down. But I can go off the screen now, so we want to come now we want to work on the player bounds, but that's really simple. So we're going to check if keys equals w, so I press w, and player1 dot rec dot x equals is smaller or equal to than 0. So if I go to the top of the screen, then wait, no, is bigger or equal to 0. So as long as, like for example, the player is my cursor and it's less than it's more than 0, then only we can move. However, if it's less than that, less than 0, we don't want to move anymore. So then we're going to check also for if we are reaching the bottom of the screen. So player1 dot, and I just realized it's y not x, dot y is smaller or equal to then our height. So if this should work. Yeah, it works really well. Okay, except for the y. Let me see why. So if it's less than or equals to height, give me a moment, let me check why isn't this working. Okay, I don't think I'll use height because I'm not sure why, but in my earlier code I used 515, so I think this should work. Yep, okay, it works. Okay, so now we can kind of like work on player 2 already. So I'm just gonna copy all of this and paste it. Now I'm gonna rename all of it to player 2, including here player 2, and I want to set it to 950 and 3 to 5, the same. We're going to scale it according also to the same as player 1, and we're going to load in the same tile, the same sprite, and here I'm going to write screen.blit player 2 and at player 2 rec, and I'm going to create the keys for it too. So I can just let me just rewrite this, I guess. Elif keys pygame dot k up. So if I press the up arrow key, and basically the same thing, and checking for the bounds, player 2 dot rec dot y smaller equal than greater or equal than 0. Then we want to move player 1 player 2 rec dot y minus equals 5, and then give me a moment. Give me a moment, let me solve this. Okay, let me close this and come back to it again. Let me open it again. Okay, yeah, sorry for the distraction. Okay, let me continue. And I will check. I want to specify player to rec dot y minus equals 5, and I'm just gonna copy and paste this now, and I'm gonna say down instead. So if I press the down arrow key, and I'm gonna check if the y is smaller or equal to 515 on plus 5. Now if I run this, both sides should work. Oh, I see oh, okay. Yeah, I can't use elif statements, so I'm gonna use if instead. Now, yep. Because if I were to use elif, it's only going to choose one of these, so they can't move at the same time. So use the if statement. So now I'm going to be creating the ball. So, okay. I want to load in the ball first. So I'm going to create a simple, okay, say ball. And I'm going to specify ball equals pygame.image.load, and the same directory we're going to be using the white tile. Let's say art/whitetile.png. I'm going to say ball equals, I'm going to scale it now, pygame.transform.scale. I'm going to say ball. I'm going to specify how large it's going to be, 30 and 30. And now we're going to get its rec. So ball rec equals ball.getRec. And I want to specify for the ball, instead of using center, I'm going to using ball rec.x equals width divided by 2 minus 10. I'm going to say the ball rec.y equals 325. And I want to draw ball on the screen dot blit ball and ball rec, and this should work. Yep, as you can see, there's a ball here now. And let me show you the reason why I had to put screen.fill_black. So if I would say take this away, run now, as you can see, it's kind of like making a really long line now when I move the player. The reason why is because like every frame Pygame is drawing the character onto the screen. So if I don't call for pygame.update, it's not gonna get rid of it, so it's gonna look really terrible. So that's why we gotta include this line. So I'm gonna put it back in. So if I run it again, it's gonna work fine. So now I just want to draw a simple line to indicate the left and right side of the screen. So I'm gonna just go in here and write line equals line. I'm gonna say line equals pygame dot image load the same thing. So I'm gonna say art slash white tile dot png, and I want to say line equals pygame dot transform dot scale. I'm gonna say line specify what I'm gonna scale, and I'm gonna give it 10 on the width and 700 on the height. And I'm gonna get its rect, so I'm gonna say line rect equals line dot get rect, and I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna put line rect dot x equals the width divided by 2, and the line rect dot y equals 0. Of course, there are surely better ways to do all this, but it's just a really basic, simple tutorial, so I'm just gonna teach you the really basics of it. So I'm gonna also draw the line of the screen now. Screen.blit line rect. So now if I run this, there we go. There's a simple line in the center of the screen. So now what I want to work on is ball movement. So what I want to do now is kind of like, okay, we're going to use this function called move ball. So first I'm going to specify an x. So what is the speed for the ball? So I'm going to say and y equals -5. Of course, later on we'll be having randomized movements, but that will be later. Let me check. Let's see. Okay, so first, because I'm going to use the x and y, so I'm going to global x and y. So because right here is just a local variable, but I need inside the function I need to kind of like use this global so I can access x and y. So then I want to say ball rect dot y plus equals y, and then let's say ball rect dot x plus equals x. And then I want to check, because if the ball hits the top, because right now we're not checking any collisions for the ball, so the ball can literally go off screen. So I want to check if ball right dot right, so in checking if I use this, like the right side is is left, is greater or equal to 0, or the ball rect dot right is less than or equal to width, is greater or equal than width. So if it's on the left or the right, then yeah, we want to then change this. So we want to x times equals -1. So if I were to hit the top, let's say, of the screen, it's gonna like bounce back. So we need to times it with -1. So if it's a negative and we times it with negative, it's gonna become positive. So it's gonna start going to the right, and then if I hit again the wall, it's gonna go to the left because I times -1. So I want to check right now if give me a moment. Check if we just want to check for whether the ball hits the player. So there's a really unique line of code for this. So we always have to say it's collide rect because both of them are rectangles, and the only thing we need to specify in here is what are we colliding with. So I'm going to put pass in player1.rect or ball rect dot collide rect with player2 rect. Then also we want the x times equals -1. So it's going to be like the opposite direction. So if I run this, oh yes, yeah, I'm not calling move ball, so let me go here and call move. Okay. Oh wait, I see there's a problem. Give me a moment, let me check back. So I'm checking if the left is smaller, got to equal to that 0. Oh yes. I forgot to include the Y, the collision. So I forgot the top and bottom. So there's ball, if ball rec dot Y dot top. So if the top of the ball is less than or equal to than 0, or ball rec dot bottom is greater or equal than height. So if it hits the top or bottom, then we want the Y times equals -1. So now this should work. There we go, it works and it collides off the player. And it works perfectly right now. So yeah, that's basically it for the first part of the tutorial. In the next tutorial, I'll be focusing on sound effects, a scoring system, and kind of like cleaning up the code, and kind of like making the randomized ball movement. So instead of always coming out from the same spot, it's going to be coming out from this way, and that way. So it just won't spawn at one spot. So I guess that's basically it for this part one of how to make Pong in Pygame. Uh, I'll be putting a link in the description to my GitHub page where you can download the entire project. If you want to just download it and use it without following the tutorial, it's perfectly fine. But if you want to follow along, it'll be great because you'll be learning how and understanding how each part of the code works. So that's it for this video, guys, and see you in the next video. Cheers.